Welcome to Movie Film. My name is Carl and I just watched a brand new movie on Netflix called The Midnight Sky. So The Midnight Sky was directed by George Clooney and also stars George Clooney, as well as people like David Oyelowo and Felicity Jones. And when I'm reviewing movies, I often reel off a bit about the movie and then tell you my overall thoughts, but I'm gonna go straight into it right from the start and tell you this is the worst movie I've watched all year. It was that bad. Now, I haven't watched anyone else's reviews, I don't know what anyone else has thought of it online, but for me personally, it was just such a terrible movie. And I've seen other George Clooney movies before. There was one with Matt Damon in it, I can't remember what it was called, but that was really entertaining, that one. This one, it was just terrible in so many aspects. The story was abysmal. The explanation of things was terrible. There was so much confusion around the movie and stuff they tried to keep secret for some random reason, keeping stuff away from the audience that they revealed an hour and a half later into the movie. Everything about this movie was absolutely awful, and the big twist later on is so generic and has been seen so many times before that it was so obvious that it was happening. And this is really weird from someone like George Clooney, who's been in movies for so long and has made his own movies for so long as well. I believe he was Oscar nominated for one of his movies. Let's talk about some of the stuff that happened in the movie. So if you haven't seen the movie, there's probably going to be spoilers in this part. The film begins with a load of people evacuating a research facility in I think Alaska or the Arctic, something like that. And George Clooney is the only one who's going to stay, despite being sick. So all these people are rushing to leave. They don't explain why they're trying to leave, at least not at the beginning, unless I completely missed something. But it's completely random, it leaves you wondering, why are all these people running away? Then later on, we see George Clooney sit in front of a screen and all these red orbs are appearing over different cities, which generally in movies would suggest nuclear bombs going off or something to that effect. But they never really explain it. Later on in the film, they show the planet Earth as being destroyed, or the atmosphere is being destroyed. The air is becoming unbreathable in parts of the world and people are going to underground bunkers. But it took an hour and a half for them to tell us this in the movie. They showed small minor things, like George Clooney goes outside at one stage and birds are falling out of the sky and they're struggling to breathe because the air pollution is getting ridiculous. And it made me wonder, is this movie about air pollution? Is it about a nuclear war? It's set in the future, or so is it like an alien invasion thing and they've destroyed the planet? Because the whole thing at the beginning is that humans have found another planet or another moon that can support life off Jupiter. And there's a crew who are going to Jupiter, or there's other crews going to Jupiter, but there's only one ship left from the whole people in space. Even the International Space Station's been evacuated. And even explain the story like this, as I'm saying it, in my head I'm saying, even explaining this sounds convoluted. And George Clooney is on Earth, seemingly kind of last man alive type of thing, because everyone else has gone to bunkers, I guess. And George Clooney's in this research facility, and as he's going along, he finds a bowl of cereal on a table, and later on that day, he finds a little girl in the facility, and he freaks out and starts trying to ring for help and saying, you left someone behind. There's a definite spoiler here. I'm just going to jump into the spoiler. The spoiler is that the little girl is also the girl who's on the ship. It's actually his daughter, and she's just a figment of his imagination. The stupid thing about this is, in the movie, at various points, they contradict this. We see shots of the girl by herself interacting with things. For example, they have the part where the cabin is, they've gone into this cabin and George Clooney shoots awake at night and it's filling with water. It's sinking. So he gets the girl out and he goes into the cabin himself. We then see a shot of the girl outside grabbing a bag and their gun and dragging them away, while George Clooney gets everything else and he tries getting away. And ultimately they end up together. But the girl is the one who brought the gun and the bag. So if she wasn't real, she wouldn't be able to bring those things. But then you've got the big one, which kind of doesn't make sense, is there's the scene at the crashed airplane. And George Clooney spots that the driver is dead and has been partly eaten by the wolves. So he tells the girl to stay back. And he goes into the ship to find whatever's in the ship, the plane. And when he goes in, he gets distracted by another guy being there who's asking him to kill him. Side part. But we see the girl outside the plane. And she goes over and looks into the plane and then is shocked. But the only people that see that is the audience. Why would you show this to the audience if the girl wasn't real? Why would the fake girl, the figment of George Clooney's imagination, reacts to something when he's not there. It doesn't make sense. And all these things were supposed to be misdirects to say, hey, look, she's definitely real. It was just really stupid because you could tell very early on that the twist was going to be that the girl isn't real, that she's actually the girl on the ship, because they kept mentioning things like the girl's pregnant on the ship. And someone mentioned at some point that her name is like a flower and her kid's name could be like a flower, and they recommend Hyacinth as a name. And this is a running thing across the movie where the female character is pregnant and all her crewmates suggest names. And that seems to be the only reason for her being pregnant in the movie, is that so that the crewmates can recommend names to her throughout the movie. George Clooney's whole thing in this movie is he's at this weather station that everyone else abandoned, and he's trying to get in contact with the last ship that's in space to like warn them not to come home. He can't reach them, their satellite's not powerful enough. So he decides they have to get to this other weather station on the far side of the snow. So they set off to go get there. And along the way, you'd expect them to have this terrible journey where a lot of shit happens. And okay, they had the cabin sink and they lost some stuff. And there was a scene where there was a bad snowstorm and they tried to make it seem like George Clooney, there was wolves coming and he shot randomly, and they're trying to make you think he shot the little girl. When the snowstorm's cleared, the girl's gonna be dead and George Clooney's gonna be crying. At one stage, George Clooney is alone in the snow crying, and this is clearly an attempt from George Clooney to win an Oscar, this one scene, and it was actually just abysmal and it's probably gonna win him a Razzie. But the whole thing is George Clooney's trying to get from one station to send a message, needs to get to the other station with a more powerful satellite, and apart from minor inconveniences, he gets there relatively easy without too much trouble. He gets there, he makes the call, and then the people on the ship are like, I don't believe it. And then two of them decide to go back to Earth and two of them decide to go back to the other planet. Oh, and some other character died for the sake of dying in space. And then at the end of the movie was the absolute worst part. Because then at the end, you've got the two most famous actors, I guess, in Felicity Jones, who was in Star Wars Rogue One, and David Oyelowo, and they're sitting beside each other and the camera just stays on them as they pretend to use a computer in front of them in silence. Music kicks in slowly and we're just left staring at the two actors pretending to use the computer until David Oyelowo gets up, and then Felicity Jones starts using both computers. That's pretty much an accurate representation of the acting. And then she gets up and walks down the opposite stairs to David Oyelowo, and then we're just left looking at two chairs. And someone thought that was a great visual to like put their end credits over and just end the movie. And the other thing is this movie was 2 hours long. It felt like a 4-hour movie. The pacing of it's terrible, the story's terrible. Overall, the acting was pretty terrible. The story, back to the story again, the story was not even a story. George Clooney had to get from one station to the other station to send a message, and he did it. If this movie wasn't made by George Clooney, it wouldn't get made, because it's fucking abysmal. But hey, maybe there's someone out there, I don't think there is, but maybe there is someone out there who enjoyed this movie, and if you did enjoy this movie, let me know in the comments below why I'm wrong about this movie. If you agreed with me, tell me why you hated the movie as well, because I personally think it's just one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And there's my little rant over. So guys, if you liked today's video, please hit the like button just so that I know what you're watching. And of course, if you've got time for it today, being Christmas and everything, check out some of the other content on our channel. We've had some great Christmas content recently, including just yesterday when we released a video about the best Christmas movie. A movie about Christmas, starring Hulk Hogan as Santa with muscles. I'd highly recommend checking that one out. And at the time of recording, we're only 14 subscribers away from hitting the 100 mark. It's a minor goal, but maybe we'll get there soon. And with your help, if you hit that subscribe button, we'll get there even faster. And with all that said and all that done, thank you so much for watching.